Good Friday, Mr. Keene.
Yes, it is another Friday, another week in tech, February the 12th. And once again, Keith, you've been sucked into the big political controversy of the week. And once again, it's about Section 230 of the Communication Decency Act. I think it's almost indecent to talk about this stuff now. It's so boring. But anyway, Keith, you're insisting on us beginning at least this show with some more stuff on Section 230. So you're coming out guns blazing, saying that anyone who's against Section 230 is either a Trumpist or a radical left cancelist. Is this what you're saying?
Well, you know what the most interesting thing is, Andrew, is...
I can see you're not answering my question, but go on.
No, I will. But boring as it is, you would think that this week of all weeks we'd be talking about impeachment, but we're not.
Yeah.
Because that's even more boring.
That's not only boring, but pointless. And we know the ending, and it's awful. Anyway, go on. At least we're not talking about that.
So the Section 230 conversation just won't go away. I mean, it's just endless. And this week in the newsletter, look, I'll just scroll through it. This is why I had to put it in. What problem are we trying to solve? Fred Wilson. The wrong question, O'Reilly.
Yeah, but these are all people in your camp. It's like
empirical evidence.
These are people you expect from. I mean,
no, here's the Democrats' plan. And so basically, I couldn't avoid it, much as I wanted to. I couldn't avoid it because everyone's talking about it. And I homed in on Fred Wilson's piece because he's a fairly thoughtful commentator. He's not gung-ho, really. And he made the point that I hadn't really heard before and I hadn't really considered, which is Section 230 actually works. So those who are against it mainly want to change what Twitter and Facebook have to do. But if you look at what they actually do, his point is it works. They can remove stuff if they want. They can be told to remove stuff. By doing so, they're not liable for everything else. So they can be sure they're not going to get sued. And, you know, for the Trump being deplatformed, much as I was against that, actually worked. They did deplatform him, or Facebook taking down today's news. What was it? Facebook took down some people who were criticizing the World Health Organization.
Yeah, I saw that.
So Fred Wilson's question is that actually a problem here? And I think it's a good question.
Well, I think it's a fair question, but I think there is a problem. I mean, there's lots of problems. I don't think anyone could argue, even the Fred Wilsons of the world, that the internet's having the most beneficial impact on society, given the crisis of democracy, given the rampant racism you and I have been talking about. This appalling racism directed not only against well-known English soccer players, male players, but female players. I mean, the social media is rife with ugliness. So there is a problem.
Yeah. Well, that's a different question.
No, it's the same question of people misbehaving and sort of on the edge of breaking the law. Whether they're actually breaking the law, who knows? Depends which country you're in.
So, but that comes down, it's almost like you're going to play the role of Plato and I'm going to play the role of Socrates. I'm going to say, you know, just let the truth will out if you just allow everything to go on. And Plato will say, no, you can only trust certain people as reliable, you know, blah, blah. So.
But it's not, Keith, it's not a philosophical issue. To me, and I don't want to spend the whole time talking about this, to me, Section 230 of the Communication Decency Act allowed internet companies to be less liable under the law than traditional media companies because it was designed to stimulate, at that point, the native digital economy, which was pretty small in the late 1990s.
Yeah.
So it gives, I just think that the Facebooks and the Twitters of the world should have exactly the same liability under the law of what they can and can't publish.
So
As a news, and I know you're going to say, well, newspapers are online, but physical newspapers, publishers, television companies, radio stations, and let me just finish, and then you'll come back on it. You will say, well, these are different businesses. They are, of course, in some ways, but they're the same in the sense that they make money out of our content. Twitter and Facebook, the only way they're viable businesses, because for better or worse, again, they get us, maybe we're schmucks, to create free content for them, and they generate revenue from that content. So they should be liable in the same way as a publisher or a radio station or a television. That's all that's all the Section 230 is about. It's not a philosophical issue about what you can and can't publish. No one's arguing that.
Well, let's just read the words from Section 230. It says, no provider or user of a computer service shall be treated as a publisher or speaker of any information provided by another information content provider. So what it's saying is, I might be a bad actor and I might publish something on your platform, let's say your blog, or I might come on Keen On and say something that's, that's damaging. I can be sued because I'm the one who said it, but you can't, because you're just providing me with the platform. It doesn't seem unreasonable that is the law.
I think it is, even with me on Keen On. I would not invite on an explicit liar or Nazi or misogynist or criminal.
But that's taste.
It's more than taste. It's a responsibility. I think the internet needs to be cleaned up. It has enormous potential. We have all a responsibility. You wouldn't have someone on this show who claim that Trump won the election or that Jews should end up in gas ovens. I mean, it would just be unthinkable, right?
That's true, but I might have someone on who, like, say, David Sachs, who doesn't think Trump should be deplatformed.
Well, I agree. I don't think Trump should be deplatformed, but that's another issue. That's different from thinking you should shove all Jews into gas chambers or throw all blacks or Hispanics out the country. I mean,
it's an interesting, genuinely interesting so I made the title, I don't know if you can see it, it's probably too small, but it says open or policed internet. And I did put it as a question.
Yeah.
I know you very well, and I know in general you're very much for open. But
open police. I think open and police go together. I don't see the reason you and I are sitting here in our homes in Palo Alto and Berkeley is because the police exists. I mean, openness requires a degree of police.
Well, I'm not convinced that my home would be invaded by bad people if there were no police. I mean, I assume the human race is generally good.
Yeah, Keith, if suddenly, if I could snap my fingers and all the policemen in Palo Alto went away, and it was open season on multimillionaires like you in your fancy homes, you wouldn't be at your home. You wouldn't be on this show. You'd be
so that means you're saying the civilization only exists because of the existence of the potential.
No, I mean, again, let's not get drawn. What I'm saying is that I agree that police and openness are two ends of the spectrum, but to have a genuine openness, you need a degree of, you need some police. I think what's going to happen, I think the really interesting question is that this is going to devolve into the network neutrality debate. And it's going to be really interesting because I think the forces on your side, the forces of Keith Teare and Fred Wilson and everybody else are going to go up against the forces of Amy Klobuchar. And I think it will be kind of like what happened recently with Wall Street and the small investors. It's going to be a really interesting clash.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that, although I suspect that I'm in a minority because I think there's two large groups, and those groups dominate Congress, that each, for their different reasons, want to change Section 230. So
yeah, but I think your newsletter this week, when you say, I can't remember what you're basically saying that these are two groups that either the radical left who are in favor of cancel culture or the Trumpists, I mean, not everyone who's against Section 230 is either a supporter of Donald Trump or cancel culture.
Well, what is an argument for changing it that isn't cancel culture? I haven't heard an argument that is rational.
It's nothing to do with no one. I don't see the connection, actually. I mean, all I'm saying, and you're not all I'm saying is that these are traditional, and this is an argument I've been making for years. Many people agree with me. Many, people like Martin Sorrell and big time guys in advertising, is that these platforms are essentially media companies because that's how they make their money, through content, through advertising. And they should be liable to the same laws as every other media company. I mean, you're not saying we live in a police state or an intensely censorous environment because radio stations or television stations or publishers have to conform to these laws.
So I'll make the point I made privately to you earlier, which is let's divide the world, because Section 230 is about, quote, interactive computer systems. Now, obviously, there is really not a media company in the world these days that doesn't exist as an interactive computer system. So the Times and the Economist do benefit from Section 230 insofar as they're online.
I think it's interesting. So I don't know what happened with the Times. If someone goes, is the Times... so the letters to the editor in the traditional newspaper wouldn't be covered. But if you put a comment up on NewYorkTimes.com or FT.com, then I assume you're covered. You're covered because it's not assumed that you control everything that everybody writes before it's published. If it can go live to air, if you like, without editorial intervention, which is pretty much everything online, then the law says you may be asked to take it down because it's illegal, and then you should, like a DMCA takedown for copyright contravention, for example. And if you don't, you may be liable. But as long as you do what the law says, you're not liable. And if you do take something down because it breaks your rules, because you can have your own rules as well, you're not liable for everything else that you don't take down. So it basically gives you the ability to act according to the way you want. Well, it's interesting, and I can't say I'm an expert on this, but when someone calls a radio station, when you have a call-in show on a radio station, if someone calls in and says, "I think that January 6th is a media invention created by George Soros and an international cabal of Jews and financiers," I assume that radio station isn't liable, but this is a pre-Section 230 media, so I don't know how that worked before then.
It's radio stations have this delay button, as does live TV. They also have their own policies, so they're meant to, for example, let's say it's children's time, they're meant to press the bleeper before bad words get on the air and things like that. So there are rules, but you're right, they are not liable for what third parties say unless they explicitly choose to put it on through an editorial decision.
No, I think you and I are in the same camp in the sense that we are both, you're more hostile to regulation, but I'm not a knee-jerk regulation person. And I think the way out of this is by creating better technology and better companies. And one example of this might be Clubhouse, or the kind of technology that Clubhouse now is popularizing. Clubhouse is back in the news again. You're calling it the Clubhouse phenomenon, Keith, but it's more the sort of many-to-many audio phenomenon, isn't it?
It's many-to-many meets audience participation in a way,
but curated, or maybe, to use one of your words, policed, because not everyone can talk. It's not just some sort of babble.
Yeah, well, every meeting has a moderator, or more than one,
i.e. policeman.
a policeman,
or policewoman.
and they determine what the topic is, and they have control over the microphones.
Which is good. Which is all good, right?
So you can be given a microphone or not. More than one person at a time can have a microphone. So you can have, you can do what we're doing now. And a very large audience, up to 5,000. It's interesting that it's only limited to 5,000 because there's no technical reason why that would be true. But anyway, they limit the rooms to 5,000 who can listen to the stream. And it is truly on fire. Interesting enough, they have blocking. And this week, Mark Andreessen blocks journalists on Clubhouse.
Yeah.
And one of the articles...
The journalists were.
Well, here's the interesting thing, the way it works. So Elon Musk was on stage speaking.
Yeah.
Mark Andreessen got on stage and was given a microphone, in quotes. The minute his microphone was live, everybody he blocks could no longer be in the room. So blocking is a cancellation of the right to listen to anybody who you don't want to listen.
And I assume you don't approve of that.
It seems like a stupid...
That's censorship.
It seems like a stupid feature.
Yeah. Do you see Clubhouse as, the Friendster of this space? Is this a real space? And is Clubhouse's first mover advantage? Is that in the long run beneficial? Because I know that Mark Cuban's into this space. Twitter now has a product. There are more and more products flooding into this space. Yeah. So there's Twitter Spaces, which, by the way, you told me about last night, and I have not been able to find any way to use it yet. So I don't think it's fully rolled out. Mark Cuban is going to do Fireside, which I think is a great name for what he calls a live podcasting application. Yeah, I trust him more than Andreessen in terms of fashioning a good media product. Yeah, and then he's still essentially a tech guy. He's not a media guy. Correct. And then there's rumors that Facebook are building something which probably will be true. I think Clubhouse... I mean, there's no way Facebook can stay out of this space. Yeah. So Clubhouse... And they won't be able to buy someone given all the antitrust, though. I would say it's Clubhouse's to lose now. Steve Ballmer went on it in the last week. Well, he's yesterday's. Who cares about Steve Ballmer? Except people are raving about how entertaining he was, given that our main point in the newsletter is how boring Clubhouse is. That the truth is, it isn't Clubhouse that's boring, it's people who are boring. But that's and there's 2 points on Clubhouse which I think are interesting. Firstly, yeah, you're right. We're complaining about it being boring, which is a lot better than people just hurling racist or other unpleasant insults at one another. But the other thing I think about, and I think I mentioned this to you last week, I think what's interesting to me about Clubhouse is it's one step further in the digital revolution's replication of real life. And I hope that step will make us better behaved. Because as we all know, the problem with the internet isn't technology, it's us and how we use it. It's people. And people aren't necessarily bad, but we've got to figure out a way to bring out our best qualities rather than our worst. And maybe Clubhouse, which is more like real life, a real place, will do that. I don't know. Yeah, no, we're aligned there. I think making digital feel more real, and there's lots of benign instances for that, like me and you getting a private boxing quotes for a Manchester United Tottenham game where we can both watch the game and interact with each other at the same time, like we could if we were in the stadium. Yeah, that's coming, and Clubhouse is a forerunner of that. Yeah, I mean, for every space. I mean, I have my daily interviews on Keen On with authors. It's a no-brainer to take that and put it on something like Clubhouse. Yeah. Now, if you can combine that with streaming to very large audiences for content which has a large audience, like the London Theatre, I would watch a play every week. If the London Theatre could come into my living room and I could meet my friends in London in a digital private box and watch a play with John Malkovich, it would be awesome. So I think it's all coming. Yeah, it's all coming in the video, and so it's going to challenge the YouTubes and obviously the Facebooks and Twitters of the world because there'll be new companies, new initiatives, new way of thinking. It's really interesting, I think.
Yeah, and to your point, this is Now TV. What we're really describing is Now TV. That's that.
Yeah, the world becomes Now. Everything is now.
Yeah, everything
is now. So you talked about the coming together of real life and digital. That's happening more and more again in work. You're reporting this week that what you say, the inevitable is now happening, remote work, the office is shutting, finally, for good, perhaps.
Well, yeah, this was a major announcement. Here's a picture of Salesforce Tower whilst it was still being built. By the looks of it, it's finished now. It's by far the largest building in San Francisco, and Salesforce announced that people will only need to go back to the office between 1 and 3 days a week, even after COVID has gone. And for Mark Benioff, who made such a huge investment in physical real estate, that's a major signpost to the future, which I think is a good one. I can tell you that if it wasn't for the sickness of COVID, the last year has been quite pleasant when it comes to how you work. And I have an investment in this company, Chargify, that I've mentioned in the past. Their whole business is taking buildings which were previously fixed desk with name tags on the desks and turning them into more WeWork style drop-in places with all kinds of software that manages the cleanliness and the use of the space. And there's $22 trillion worth of real estate in the world that's going to need to go through that transformation. So that's a massive new business area, which is building transformation.
Yeah, everything is changing. And one area that you focus on this week, which we've heard before and we'll hear again, and it seems inevitable, is the end of retail banking. I just spent wasted an hour of my life, which I'll never get back, sat in my local Wells Fargo for something they promised me they could do, which they couldn't. It's one of the more miserable experiences. It beats going to the hospital, but not by much. Are we on the brink, Keith, of the end of retail banking?
I think we are, for a number of reasons. I mean, if you think, what does a retail bank do? Well, the first is it's a custodian of whatever assets you have that you're not, spending in your pocket, usually via a debit card or sometimes also a credit card. Well, with the emergence of digital wallets like Apple Card and Revolut on Monzo, there's a few of them, what you're getting is the separation of the banking services from a bank. There's no longer need for a bank because you have an iPhone card and you can pay digitally or physically through the card, and your wallet.
PayPal. Yeah, I mean, PayPal is almost a universal retail bank, except you don't have to go into it.
PayPal, Square, Venmo. I think blockchain with Visa now announcing that you're going to be able to spend Bitcoin.
MasterCard as well. So they're all right in this space.
So you're going to have people and assets, and you're going to have what, technically speaking, is called self-custodial services. You'll be the custodian of your own assets. You won't need a bank. So the bank will become not retail banks, but central banks will continue to exist, print money and so on. But retail banks kind of go away.
So we're in the midst of a new boom, Keith. We've talked today about a new excitement in social media with many-to-many audio companies like Clubhouse. We're talking about the rise of crypto and digital currencies and fintech. You had a piece this week, January 21, the 2021 VC funding just shy of 40 billion, hits an all-time high. Are we in a boom? We were supposed to be in a bust. Where'd this boom come from?
So this is written by somebody you and I know well, Jene Tia.
Oh, well.
Who's sitting 2 rooms away from me right now.
Congratulations, Jene. You shouldn't need a photo of her in this.
And I asked her to come on and talk, but she was too shy, so she didn't. But basically VC funding hit 40 billion in January, and there were 38 new unicorns. Here's the list: in healthcare, software, logistics, more software, food and beverage. If you look at the list, a lot of software.
Even Bumble now got valued at, what is it, 15 billion? I'm not sure what that says, whether the boom is really just another tulip mania or whether it's for real.
I think it means that the power of women to determine their dating preferences is on the rise.
We'll have to get Janae on the show to talk about that. So we might be in a little bit of a boom, Keith, certainly on the West Coast in Silicon Valley. What about other parts of the world? I know you had a couple of points this week on UK investing and the rise of Africa. What's happening both in the UK and Africa?
Yeah, there was a couple of things. I'm part of a UK fund called ADV, so I keep my eyes a lot on what's going on in the UK. There was a great article in Sifted, which is a fantastic publication, by the way, about the most active angels in 2020. If one was to click on that, you will see that they've got a leaderboard, Matt Robinson, Ian Hogarth, and they're not all British, but they're all investing through London, which is by far and away the biggest focus of investing in Europe. And, the numbers are now getting very, 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 very big. So that was about UK investing. But Harry Stebbings is leaving Stride. That's kind of interesting. It's gossip. Harry is a very well-known young investor who runs 20-Minute VC and has a huge audience, over 1 million, for his podcast. And Fred Distan is a superstar investor over many, many decades here in the States and in the UK. And the second fund is going to be Harryless. There's no reason why, other than probably Harry's moving on and doing his own thing. But then, to your point, what I find really interesting is the rise of Africa. People don't realize this, but Nigeria is going to be the second largest population on Earth by 2050, bigger than India. And Africa itself is going to be the fastest growing economy in the world by then. And so African venture is small, 400 million in 2015, 2 billion in 2019. So small but growing, compared to 40 billion in a single month in January in the Western world. So you got to keep your sense of perspective.
Can we say, Keith, that we always give a startup of the week? Can we make Africa our startup of the week this week?
I think we could. And there's a company I'm an investor in called Verto FX that does money transfers across borders in Africa, that we can peg that one in there as well.
Africa will finally bury retail banking. And finally, my favorite part of this show, tweet of the week, Keith. What was the tweet of the week?
Well, our old friend, Gabe Rivera, who is the founder of TechMeme, tweeted.
Good guy, one of the unambiguously good guys in tech, who's been around for years. I don't think he has an enemy, does he?
His sense of humor is such that he should have lots of enemies. He is an example of his sense of humor. Every night, hear people tweet that something amazing is happening right now on you know what. And then when I reluctantly go to check out that room, it's really boring and I leave a minute later. So what is wrong with me? Is there some drug I should be taking to enjoy these? That's his tweet. I actually tweeted back, the drug is produced organically when your sense of self-importance is bigger than your sense of self.
Ooh, well, you're not going to win any friends that way. And to be fair to Gabe, I think his product, TechMeme, which hasn't really changed for 10 or 15 years, is still essential. And it's a nice complement to this show. I don't think you could do This Was the Week without TechMeme, could you, Keith?
TechMeme through its week, TechMeme does a lot more than my newsletter. It's like my newsletter times
that's Gabe.
At least times 7. But I think it's my newsletter times 14 in terms of its amount of content. And they do a daily newsletter as well, which summarizes it. So Techmeme is awesome. I strongly recommend it. Yeah.
Well, Keith, I don't want to ruin the day for our friends on the East Coast, but it's 60 degrees in California. It's middle of February. I can feel the shoots of spring, not only in the air when it comes to the weather, but also perhaps with tech. I think for the first time, perhaps for a while, we've had a show in which the good news outweighs the bad. Is that fair?
I hope that's fair, because I'm an optimist, and I don't
But
like
I'm naturally
being
a pessimist, and you're making me an optimist. So I must be drinking something.
You know, I had a call yesterday with an old friend who was on my board at Edgeo many years ago, called Dan Finnegan. And Dan is younger than me, and he emailed me afterwards saying he made me feel 10 years younger. And I like to believe that I have that impact on people, Andrew. So you're now officially only 36.
26, actually. Well, Keith, as always, a pleasure and an honor. And you've cheered me up on this Friday afternoon in California. I hope you have a wonderful week, and we will see everyone again in a week on February the 19th. February the 19th, where we will no doubt talk about everything except, I hope, Section 230.
Me too.